How are you doing? School going well? Okay, all right. At least we got a beautiful day here today, isn't that right? Yeah. This is really great. So, well, I'm really happy to be up here today and talk to you a little bit about this election, and I think my job, because I'm not... Oh, it's the radio. Sorry. Okay. The thing that he said, and really I think our party is really all about, is there's room for everybody at the table, right? I think that's what our party is about, and that's what the Republicans haven't been about, and that's why this election is so important. So I just want to talk about a couple of things today, but start out by saying, I've been around a lot of parts of the state in the last month, and this whole idea of an enthusiasm gap out there is really being oversold and overrated. Maybe it's true in other parts of the country, but here in Minnesota, you really can feel the Democrats are gearing up. In my own district, we had about 60 volunteers going out on Saturday to door knock for Mark Thissen and the rest of the DFL tickets, and really get people excited and energized about the race. And we're going to need that same kind of effort, all across the state, and I see it happening everywhere I go. So thank you for doing that. What the stakes are here in this election, I think, can be boiled down to this. The media likes to talk about Republicans and Democrats as being about raising taxes or lowering taxes. But that's way too simplistic way to think about it, I think. The reality is both parties need taxes to get by. The Democrats want to do progressive taxes, make it fair. The Republicans want to increase property taxes. They want to increase tuition. They want to increase fees. Things that are really unfair for a lot of people, but help their friends. And that's the thing that we have to get out there. So what are Democrats and Republicans what are the real differences? I think there's really three things. The first thing is Democrats really believe in community as opposed to just everybody getting by for themselves. And I think in these days, especially with this economic turmoil going on, that's something that's really resonating with people. And I think what Mark Thissen is doing is doing very well all across the state. The second thing that Democrats really believe in, as opposed to Republicans, is the idea that fairness is not just about fate. You're born into some kind of family, and how you do kind of is what you're born with. Democrats believe in fairness of opportunity, that we all have to help each other kind of get to this platform of being able to succeed. And the last, and I think the most important thing, especially right now as we look at this aging of our population and moving into a global economy, some of the things that Congress is talking about, what the Democrats believe in is the future. What the Republicans believe in is going back to the past. I was on the radio a couple months ago with Tom Emmer, and he said on NPR what he'd like to see is a Minnesota that goes back to 1960. That's the kind of government, that's the kind of state that Tom Emmer wants. That's a state that was before Medicare and Medicaid. That was a state that was before civil rights and all the human rights progress that we've made in the last 30 years. That was a Minnesota before we put in any environmental protections. That was a Minnesota before 18-year-olds could vote. I don't think we want to go back to the Minnesota of the 1960s. What Mark Thissen sees, I think, is a Minnesota that's looking to the future. A Minnesota that's making sure that, for instance, on colleges, if you're thinking just about private good, if you're thinking just about the past, you're not going to make the kind of investment we need to make in Minnesota's colleges and universities. You're not going to make the investments we need to make to make tuition affordable so people can graduate and go on to do incredibly productive and innovative things. That is how we've succeeded, as the Congressman said, and that's how we're going to continue to succeed as we go forward. If you're thinking about the past, you're thinking about just individual good instead of the community and the future, you're not going to make the kind of decisions about the environment, an energy economy, this new energy economy moving towards renewable energy as opposed to coal and gas and things that pollute our environment. You're not going to think about those things that are actually going to change our economy and make us stronger in a global economy in terms of the energy and the environment. That's what we have to focus on as Democrats, is talking about those things. That, I think, those are really the distinctions that we have to get out there. And that is what should be motivating us to go out and talk to our friends and our neighbors over and over and over again. One of the things that gets me so frustrated as a public official is the job of actually having to respond to the other side, not just once, not just twice, not just 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, but 1,000 times. But we have to keep doing it. It's that persistence of getting the facts out there, of getting our values out there, of getting our ideas about heading to the future instead of the past out there. And that's what we need you to do for the next, we got 3 weeks to go before the election. And it's not just showing up to vote. What we need you to do is go and help Ben, go and help Jim, go and help Congressman Peterson, go and help Mark Thissen. Get out there and knock on doors and make phone calls and talk to all your friends and neighbors. If you could turn out on this campus, double the turnout that you turned out from last year, it could make a huge difference in making sure that we elect Democrats up and down the ticket. So that's your job. I'm going to be in Glenwood this coming Saturday, so not too far down the road, like about 30 miles down the road. At 10 o'clock, we're going to be doing some door knocking in that district for Senator Dayton, for others. If you want to come out, we'll get an email out so you can help us out in doing that, because we're trying to do that all over the state. But the last thing I want to talk about is Mark Dayton specifically, because I watched him for the last year and a half, see what kind of a person he is, observe him up close, and I think there's, aside from all the politics stuff, I think there's really two things that Mark Dayton is going to bring to the governor's office that is really going to make a difference in Minnesota for our state going forward. And the first thing is that, as I've kind of learned in my 8 years in the legislature, you can kind of decide things in your head about what good policies would be. And I actually came into the legislature with that kind of mindset, that all it is kind of looking at the facts and figuring out, okay, this is the best way to go. But at the end of the day, political decision making is much about what's in your heart as what's in your head. And if you look at the friends that Tom Horner and Tom Emmer keep, really they've been friends with corporate interests for their whole careers. That's what they've been speaking out for their whole careers. And Mark Dayton has been standing up to the people that coach Little League, the farmers, the people that are serving overseas, the soldiers serving us overseas, and as they come back. That's the kind of guy that you want, that's the kind of person, really, that you want in the governor's office. Someone who is going to not just think with their head, but also with their heart. And that is Mark Dayton, and I think that is something that is going to serve us incredibly well going forward. And the other thing that I think is so important about Mark Dayton right now, and it maybe hurts us sometimes in our electoral efforts, but we are facing some huge challenges in this state. We have a $6 billion deficit. We have college tuition soaring, as all of you probably know all too well. We have health care, tens of thousands of people without health care in this state. Huge challenges. What Mark Dayton, I think, is going to bring to the office